Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session Data Privacy and Compliance, Data Governance Framework for Effective Data Management. And I am Ritika Chakraborty. I will be your host for the day. Before we get started, we would like to go over a few house rules for our attendees. The session will be in listen only mode and will last for an hour, out of which last 10 minutes will be dedicated to Q&A. If you have any question during the webinar to the organizers or our speaker, use the Q&A window. Also, if you face any audio video challenges, please check your internet connection or you may log out and log in again. And very important announcement for our audience, we have started the CPE credit certification for our audience. The criteria to get the CPE credit certificates, the attendees needs to attend the entire webinar and then write an email to cybertalks@ecouncil.org. You have to attend the live webinar. After that only you will get the certificate. Also, we would like to announce to our audience about the special handouts. Take the screenshot of the running webinar and post in your social medias like LinkedIn or Twitter, tagging EC Council and use the hashtag CyberTalks. We will share free handouts to the first 10 audience. As a commitment to close the cybersecurity workforce gap by creating multi-domain cyber technicians, EC Council has pledged $3.5 million towards CCT education and certification scholarships to certify approximately 10,000 cyber professionals ready to contribute to the industry.
Did you know that you can be part of the lucrative cybersecurity industry? Even top companies like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, IBM, Facebook, and Dell all hire cybersecurity professionals. The cybersecurity industry has a 0% unemployment rate. The average salary for an entry-level cybersecurity job is about $100,000 per year in the United States. Furthermore, you don't need to know coding and learn from your home, and you get a scholarship to kickstart your career. Apply now. EC Council is pledging a $3.5 million CCT scholarship for cybersecurity career starters. Scan the QR code on the screen to apply for the scholarship. Fill out the form.
To learn more about the program, please visit the link shared in the chat section. Now about our speaker. Ljubica is a recipient of Cybersecurity Top 50 Women of Influence Europe for 2019 and 2021. A senior expert consultant, international trainer, and speaker in data management, personal data protection, and privacy. She is also the founder and president of Women4Cyb, part of the international cybersecurity community. She has served and led various projects as a senior expert at international bodies such as the European Union, the World Bank, the UN, and UNICEF. Further, she has also governed data management and personal data establishment and operation within fast-growing public and private sector entities in Europe and Middle Eastern countries. Based on the tailored training program she has built in her fields of expertise, she has also trained relevant employees within various future and vision-oriented companies. So right now, without any further delay, I am handing over the mic to our speaker. Over to you, Ljubica.
Thank you, Kritika. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, which is today very related to one, I would say, very challenging question to all of us: data privacy and compliance. But in terms of data governance and what does it mean to be privacy and data protection compliant, and what the influence of data privacy and its compliance towards becoming effective and improving the data management within the practice of your company. I'm very grateful to the DC Council and to all of you for the opportunity to talk about, as I said, for one topic which is not challenging now, but I'm sure having in mind the ways of communication, the value of data as an asset, it is going to be even much more challenging in the days to come. So, as I'm not going further, since Kritika has introduced me very well, I will just add that my interests related to data privacy and data protection nowadays move to some regions of the world, where compared, for instance, to Europe, those regions weren't well acknowledged towards data privacy and data protection. And I'm very glad that, for instance, Middle East countries nowadays, starting with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates, already put in place their laws in data protection, and also they are following, very well following the standards when it comes to data management. So one can legitimately ask why it is so important nowadays to talk about data. Here, the former executive chairman at Google, as he explains, very interesting a bit, he said that if we compare from the period through the dawn of civilization through 2003, the same volume, or the same kinds of data were shared, while the same volumes of data, much information is now created even nowadays every day. So that's the reason why we need to to have in mind data governance and data management in place. So why data matters? If we want to go further in data governance and data management specifically, we must have in mind the importance of data nowadays. Here are few only reasons share with you why data matters, and I'm sure that all of you, more or less as individuals, having in mind your personal profiles and accounts on social media, also having in mind your role as employees or staff within the companies, you're quite aware in your everyday working or individual activities in your private life why data matters. First of all, those clever companies, I would say smart companies, are using data as a valuable asset, and that takes us to the next stage, that data matters because it makes somehow the impossible possible. Why? Because nowadays data is considered as one of the crucial influencers of decision making. And this is not a story or an example only for huge companies, for huge businesses, but also nowadays mid and small companies already put in place effective and efficient data management in order to get to a position where their decision makers and their decisions which are important for their work will be much more effective and efficient in practice. Finally, data also affect operational efficiency because data governance and also data management and technology as part of data management are affecting also the processes and procedures through which the businesses are functioning in practice. And finally, data is improving business performance of companies. As I said, I'm sure that all of you can share some practical experience. What does it mean to put in place? And maybe at the end, at the part where we will discuss the Q&A session, you can share some examples of data-driven companies in practice. As you can see from here, I take into consideration three, let's say, very successful businesses in practice: Netflix, Google, and Uber. Nowadays, for instance, Netflix is using data to create new blockbuster hit series. Uber is using data to provide to its customers faster and more efficient ride with data. And finally, the main search engine, Google, is using data to utilize people analytics for creating a better workplace. So we said that we mentioned that data is important and why does it matter, but let's see what does it mean, data governance compared to data management in practice, and in that spirit to put privacy and data protection as element within the data governance framework. Through this webinar, I will share with you some practical tips. What's important to have in mind when building data governance program or data governance framework for your company, and also what's the place and how you should treat privacy and data protection in order to build effective data management. But first of all, let's see what is data governance. If you try to search on Google, for instance, you will find plenty different definitions about what is data governance, and sometimes can be misinterpreted data governance for data management and vice versa. And it is not surprising because either data governance and data management are somehow fresh topics nowadays. And I can say that even we are going in step parallelly with what's going on, because nowadays building data governance and effective data management within companies is something that they must put in place. They can't find a lot of practical examples how to do that, because you won't find it. It is something which is in place in step right now. So I here try to give a kind of explanatory definition. What is data governance from my perspective? It is a set of principles and practices in place that ensure high quality through the complete data life cycle. What a data life cycle means? It means that we observe data and we treat data from the very moment when the data was created or other way obtained till the final destination, which means the final destination is whether the data is deleted and non-existent anymore, or to the moment where data can't serve to its original purpose anymore. On the right side of the slide, you can see something which is important for data governance. It explains, you see the first circle explains what data governance means in practice, and actually what are the three core components building the data governance program. The first one, if you go from the right to the left, the first one are people. And there is no doubt that in data governance and in building effective data management, people are the most important. Why? Because people take care about data. People take care whether the data is accurate. They care about the ownership. They care what kind of technology, what kind of measures they are going to put in practice in order to get the value from the data. And of course, people are decision makers, and I'm sure that although having in mind the artificial intelligence, nothing is anymore so sure as it was. But I'm sure I'm kind of confident that in the not so near future, people will still be the most important chain when it comes to data governance as well. Then after people come processes, because people put in place data through processes, and finally technology through specific technology, through specific tools. The data governance and data management is actually built in practice. The next circle is related to the ownership, accessibility, security, quality of data, which is quite very important, and knowledge when it comes to data. That means in every data governance, in building every data governance program, what's important to know who is the exact owner of the data in each specific part of the data life cycle, then to know how and who can access the data within the program. What are the specific operational and technical measures that are going to be obtained in practice in case to make data secure and safe? The quality of data, as I mentioned, because it is of no use if the company has possessed a lot of data, but the main question is whether that data is useful, or is there any purpose to have the data in your system. And finally, knowledge. That's why this kind of webinars, this kind of training programs and awareness campaigns are important when it comes to data governance and data management process. So I said, and I've mentioned that sometimes if you try, for instance, on Google to search data governance, elements of data governance, the importance and why it is of such a huge importance and influencing the companies, you will find sometimes data governance and sometimes data management. But I'm sure that if you go deeper, you will find the differences. You will see, first of all, that data governance and data management should go in the same direction, because otherwise you won't have effective data ruling in practice, and that will lead to not so good negative results for your company and for its profit and for its working. So at the very beginning, what's important for making a difference between data governance and data management? Data governance is part, or I would say it is an element of data management, but it is an element that can't be in any way replaced, or it must exist in data management, because data management as a framework, as a program, actually is built on and starts from data governance. So what are the other differences? Data governance explains, actually takes into consideration and is concentrated on policies, control, or rules on how data is governed within the company or organization and how data quality is achieved in practice, while data management is primarily concentrated on logistics or methods of how data is being organized within your company. Then, data governance involves multiple members of the company holistically, which means that each department within that company must be part of building data governance, because if we say that policies, controls, or rules are part of data governance, or the data governance is concentrated on them, then it is very understandable and logical why all departments or units within a company must be involved in building data governance, while data management is primary responsibility of the IT sector. I said here purposely primarily because it is not true if you say only IT department or IT staff within the company is relevant and responsible for data management. Data governance is the first building block of data management because it focuses on framework to achieve goals and to avoid at the same time, while achieving goals, to avoid any potential risks. While data management is covering all aspects of data governance. And finally, data governance is focused and is relied primarily on the overall business strategy, because it must follow the overall business goal and to avoid the overall business risk for the company, while data management is primarily focused on, but not only, but is primarily focused and is built on technology. So, in building, when you start now, when we are aware of the differences and the relation between data governance and data management, what are the main principles you should have in mind when you are building your data governance programs? These are accuracy, which means data must be accurate. That means you must check the data. You must check whether it's up to date through the whole life cycle. Usually companies are checking that or reviewing the data every 6 months or every annually. Then accessibility, which means is it easy to access the data, who can access the data and how. Is the data consistent? The stewardship of data, which means who owns the data. Integrity of data, which is very important principle, but we won't talk about it right now. Compliance with various regulations and rules, and finally being transparent in that spirit. Data governance framework. Data governance framework, in other words, if I should use 2 or 3 words to explain it, I would say that it is the whole element or all parts which are part of the data governance program. But what you should have in mind are some, I would say, most important tips for establishing effective and efficient data governance. First of all, at the very beginning, and this is something that you should have in mind through all the process of data lifecycle, is that you should first identify all the data assets owned by the company, no matter whether in electronic or in manual or paper or paper form. And you should reassess it over and over again, because data is something that should be changed through the time. Through the reviews, you must change the data, and that's why you must all the way identify all the data assets that you own. Then you must take care when you're trying to build your own for your company, the own data governance framework. You should try to select the appropriate model. My advice and my strong recommendation to all working on the data governance framework is not to concentrate on some successful model which was found successful in some other company, but because there is a difference, a lot of issues should have in mind when you select the model that suits the best for your company. Then the next step is to choose stakeholders wisely. You must, as you identify the data assets, you must also identify the stakeholders, which means both externally and internally, and to find out what's the role and what's the importance of stakeholders within the data governance process. I advise strongly to get rid of too much data, because although some companies and some decision makers even think that the more data you have within the company, it is more valuable for you, and you have more information, is not like that in practice. You should have only those data which are valuable for your company and for your clients and for the decision-making process. Project documentation needed is very important. High quality data for decision-making, of course. Quality of data is very important in data governance framework, and I'm always, when I talk about it, I always repeat it to have in mind. And finally, regulatory data compliance. If I go back to what I said, that I'm very happy and pleased that some other countries outside of EU, outside of Europe and United States are now concentrating and putting some efforts in building data governance, is that finally all companies, all those economies which are broadly oriented, find out that being compliant with data governance and data management standards and data privacy standards is very important for the decision making and also for the profit of the company itself. But we won't go deeper in this explanation. Here is the data governance roadmap, or 4 steps to have in mind and to go through when you're creating a data governance roadmap. The first one, to identify key program drivers. The second one, to carry out requirement gathering initiatives. To inventory current requirements and understand concerns. Conduct a gap analysis to know where to focus effort. I would say these steps should go back, because always state of play analysis and gap analysis as part of state of play analysis are, from my perspective, and it is shown in practice, that it is the first step. Why? Because it gives you a very realistic overall view of what's going on in your company. So then, if you identify your strengths, weaknesses, the gaps, then you know how much you're compliant with the regulatory framework. What do you need to do in order to build effective data governance, data management, etc.? Then the fifth step, use effort or transition mapping to prioritize initiatives, to estimate total costs and funds required, and finally to create a comprehensive roadmap with milestones and timelines. I was working recently on one data governance strategy for one state authority in the Middle East region. And from my perspective, I see that, and that was a strategy for a 4-year period. It was the first strategy, data governance strategy for the authority itself, but also it is something fresh for the whole country. So there were now a lot of examples that we can follow to build it. And that's why I built this kind of circle showing you what are the main data governance components when you're building data governance program for your company. As I said, people have central position. The circle started here, but also it goes back and finishes here. Then after that, you must have a strategy. There are companies or authorities that think that they can just jump in building data governance framework, but from my experience, it is shown that that's not a good idea because you don't know what you're jumping in. That's why you need a strategy, as for a 4 or 5-year period, where you will put in place identify all strategic objectives, all your goals, where you want it to be, what are the main areas that needs to be covered for your company, etc. Then you will build the processes to put in place. Of course, processes are mutually very closely related to policies, because policies and strategy are documents on which the data governance is built on. Standards, because usually they're international, not only national standards, but international standards must be part of each, and being compliant and put those standards in everyday work in place should be some of the basic orientations for the company. Of course, security, because if you don't have mature enough and relevant security measures and technology in place, you won't be able to protect and to safeguard data you have it, and that means you're under possible attack of some unwanted influences outside. Socialization and communication go hand by hand, because you must, if you want to have to build awareness about data governance and to inform your clients what is going on with their data in practice, then you must find a way how to well communicate the data governance to public. Finally, metrics. It is always a good idea to build proper and relevant metrics that will give you complete insights and results, what's going on with your data governance, in every aspect. Of course, metrics should be part of the strategy. And finally, technology. But technology, you must also be wise. The companies must be wise and smart when trying to find the right technology to put in place. Because as I said, as it's the same with people, if you don't have all other components in place, but you just follow the stream, what are other companies or what other authorities are doing in terms of technology, then there can be some mistakes in practice. The most important skills for the data governance experts, I will name only few to have in mind. If you're new in data governance or data management practice and you want to find out more, what kind of courses, what kind of trainings do you need, then you should have in mind these important skills: data literacy, business understanding, technical proficiency, data ethics and compliance, metadata management, data architecture, data analytics, expert problem solving. Just a few of them. And what to be cautious of when you're building your data governance, aside from the most important tips I share with you. What I would like to build a kind of to provoke your awareness what can happen if your company does not follow data governance practice properly. You can be faced with the risk of poor data governance and to the consequences of poor data governance, the consequences of non-compliance, and finally, this can cost this inaction or misaction in practice can cost you a lot. For instance, if you take into consideration, I have in mind the GDPR, the most important data protection regulation in European Union, you will find that each company can be fined with up to 4% of their annual global turnover in one individual case. And some can say, okay, that's not such a big deal for wealthy, huge companies, which are actually tech giants or main players on the market. But I wouldn't agree with that, because if you take into example social media platforms, the most famous one, then they will see that you will see that every day they are exposed to huge fines, and finally, at the end of the day, it's not something not that important for them as well. So, what's the role? I've mentioned that the process must start when you're planning to go through and to build your data governance program or framework. You must have in mind, it is my recommendation to start with building data governance strategy and to put in practice. Because why? Because data governance strategy is a kind of high-level background plan that defines and at the same time outlines the goals and direction for data governance within an organization. It builds you and it gives you an overview of the operating model for data governance for the business, and finally it focuses the organization how will use the data to generate value. And believe me, it's not it has shown me in the practice that it's not so easy to build a data governance strategy, especially when it's the first data governance strategy for the company itself. A creative, effective, and smart data governance strategy involves few steps: to prioritize data through their prior identification, to assemble key stakeholders, to assess current practices, to define goals and objectives, also the vision and mission in front of the data governance program, to develop the whole data governance framework, policies, processes, to monitor, to find measures and mechanism, practical mechanism, but also tools how to measure and to monitor improvement and the results in practice. So, what to keep in mind when defining data governance program? I will skip in terms of time, since I shared a few thoughts with you. I will skip this one and go to the implementation of data governance in practice. How to do it? I said to define your data strategy, start with your data strategy. Then the next step should be to identify and group essential stakeholders, but not only essential stakeholders, also other stakeholders and their role within data governance process. What's very important also, you must secure executive support. That means from the very executive, the highest executive decision makers within the company. Assess, build, and refine data governance program. Document, put in practice all data policies and processes. Identify and establish respective role with their responsibilities. Define processes, and finally implement, adapt, and evaluate the strategy. So these are the steps in the interest of time we have, since I mentioned the steps, I will just share only very briefly with you these steps. The first, define your data strategy and data governance goals and objectives. Why it is important? Because it gives you a picture in the future, in every point of time, where you want it to be. For instance, in a year with your data governance framework, and it gives you an overview after year, after you measure it, whether you get to the goals for that year, or maybe you have to reassess it, review it. Maybe sometimes you have to do some changes, but that's why you must define your goals and objectives. Then you must secure executive support and essential stakeholders. There are several levels. You see here, executive, strategic level, tactical level, and operational level. These are all 4 levels where you should secure support. Then you must, as a step 3, assess, build, and refine data governance programs, starting from the current state analysis. I'm repeating once again, this is from my perspective, from practice, the best step to start with in building your data governance program. Then do interviews, internal interviews within your company with relevant departments, units, and people which are working every day with data. But also interviews with external stakeholders and other interested parties. Do some surveys, verify hypotheses and steps forwards. Do feedback update, consolidate, and then go in every year once again. Of course, you must document what you do within data policies and data processes, procedure. You must document. Why? Because these are guiding points in everyday work. They give information, valuable information, and of course, knowledge and awareness to the staff, to the employees within the company. Establish roles and respective responsibilities. This is there should be a webinar which will be concentrated solely on responsible roles and respective responsibilities within data governance process. Why? Because it depends on several factors or issues, what kind of roles and responsibilities the company should involve within. It depends on how huge, how big is the company, the volume of data, the kind of data that company owns, whether it shares the data with other entities or just internally, what kind are their sensitive, so-called sensitive or special categories of personal data, how many employees, etc. And finally, the last steps, develop and refine data processes and implement, evaluate, and adapt data strategy. Data governance tools are also very important because those tools, and you must choose wisely, data governance tools and technologies. And I'm giving here just a quick, just a brief picture of what are the things you should have in mind when you select the appropriate data governance tools. Accessibility, security, ease of use, scalability, compliance, sustainability, applicability, and cost. But please not start with the cost, because sometimes what seems that is cost effective at first glance, it appears in practice that unfortunately it wasn't like that. There are various, a lot of various tools outside there when it comes to data governance. It's up to you to explore through the various tools, through their strengths and weaknesses. Here, this is a very useful kind of graph showing 4 generations so far of data governance tools. If you go back to generation 1, starting from Informatica, Oracle, Alex, InfoGeek, etc., to the generation 4 nowadays, Atlas, Sekoda, you will see a lot of differences, but you will also see that what companies weren't aware of how data is valuable in those, I would say, those days when this first generation, generation 1, was put in place, you will see that now there's the reason why finally companies are seeing the real value of effective data management. There is one, if you search on Google, you will find it here in the presentation. There is a source showing where you can find an easy way how to compare different data governance tools. Some of them are also only data governance tools, but some of them have broader scope of coverage, and they are covering also data management. Data privacy, a few more words about the data privacy within data governance program. Why I didn't concentrate, that someone may ask why I didn't concentrate at primary and most on data privacy in data governance program, because it seems that first of all you should be aware of the framework of data governance. You should be aware of the main principles for data governance, and then to go on deeper within data privacy, which is only one of the aspects of data governance program, and one of the aspects that you should have in mind in order to be compliant with the standards. These are there are international. Please be aware that there are a lot of international standards in data privacy, and it doesn't. If, for instance, the country where you work in, where your company is in, it doesn't have any specific law regulating data privacy, that those international standards are not in place. Also, what should have in mind when it comes to data privacy and to identify within data governance programs and our data privacy risks? Believe me, they are all around, but also they are in place very effective ways how to fight with data privacy risks and threats. Of course, there are a lot of operational and technical measures and controls valuable, and common regulatory frameworks. I will finish in a few seconds just to mention that data governance scorecard here I'm sharing with you as one positive mechanism, or I would say tool that I use in practice, also for data governance strategy, but also for the whole data governance program, because it is a set of previously agreed metrics reported on a regular basis. So these are metrics which are based on your own data governance program for the company, but also which are supported, reviewed, and further supported by the stakeholders. And finally, what you should have in mind, or what to measure, how to measure your results and success within data governance program. What you must measure is data privacy and security, data quality, compliance and regulatory, data catalog and metadata, maturity level of your data governance program, and there are a lot of tools and also metrics, training and communication, the way how you train, do you relevantly accurately train your staff, communication, the way how you communicate your messages to the public, tools you use and technology in place, and finally the financial impact of your data governance programs. With this, we finalize today's session. I hope that this was valuable for you, and I hope that sincerely that EC Council and all of you as participants will see how valuable this webinar was as a starting one, so we can proceed further with more details related to some aspects of data governance program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ljubica. It was a great session, and as I have already mentioned, it was a great session, an informative session, and our audience shared the same sentiment. Today's webinar is in sync with our CND certification. EC Council's CND maps to many roles in the industry like network security engineering, network security administrator, network security analyst, network security architect, network defense technician, security operator, etc. Anyone with a CND certification is eligible for 135,000 plus job vacancies globally with an average salary of $86,000 per annum. If you are interested to know more, please take part in the poll which is going to be conducted right now. Let us know your preferred mode of training and we will reach out to you. So everyone, shall we start the Q&A, Ljubica?
Yes, we may.
Okay, so our first question is, what are the important pillars of effective data governance and data management in an organization?
Thank you for your question. It's an interesting and challenging one, I would say. First of all, I will, this is a kind of, my answer will be a kind of upgrade or to put some further words to what I already explained. As I said, first of all, and we should always have in mind that each organization or each company it has its own story, its own history, and of course its own characteristics. And those characteristics of the company itself are the first things we should have in mind when we are building data governance program. The second very important thing is the specifics of the sector or the specific of the area in which that company or organization or authority, whatever, is operating in. Because it is different if you go in the banking sector, for instance, or in the insurance sector or in health sector, whatever. And these are the two main components. And also, as I said, the size of the company is very important. The volume of data that company creates, but also the volume of data that company obtains through its work. What kind of data it has within the company? Does it share the data with other entities? And here I would say three pillars are the most important when it comes to data governance program, but also for the whole data management program. The first of all, I said people. You must have the right people in right places. That means that you must identify the data governance roles that you must have in place and with their respective responsibilities, because you can avoid any risks or any potential threats towards your data governance program and the data you have it, if you put the right people, if you identify the right roles with their right responsibilities, the right people to take care for the data. Also, people on the executive decision-making positions are very important parts to identify, to leverage them, because different kind of decisions related to data belongs to a different level of decision makers within the company. And as I said, it is very important to have the support of executives, decision makers within the company, because otherwise, if you don't have the support, you can't put in place, you can't implement the right program. Also, if they don't have incentives that you need, for instance, more money to put in place in order to build effective data governance programs, then that program won't be so effective as it should be. The next step are processes. You must build the right processes, which means that you can have the best people with identified roles and responsibilities within data governance program. But if you don't document all processes that should be undertaken for data, then that won't be effective, that won't be effective data governance and data management program. And finally, if you have people, you have identified and well-documented procedures and processes which are closely related and relevantly related with people, with their roles and responsibilities, was the third chain that is missing? Of course, technology, because nowadays most of the data, more than 90% of the data, in not only in big companies but also in mid and small companies, are in electronic stored, shared in electronic form. That's why you have to have these pillars, which are most important: people, policies, and technology, and of course to have documented all this in place. And what's very important, and that's why I'm putting light on it several times, and I'm repeating it: you must train regularly and relevantly your people, because from some interviews and also from some researches, it is shown that sometimes because of staff is not adequately equipped with knowledge when it comes to data management for their respective roles, they do some mistakes, but it's up to the company to identify what are the weak points in data governance program, and to offer regularly relevant training and courses to their staff. And of course, awareness, not only for the staff, but also for the general public, was the importance and valuability of data as an asset. And of course, building the framework as a whole, as all these elements to be, first of all, identified within data management strategy. From my perspective, data governance or data management strategy is the starting and the most important point in building effective and efficient data governance program. Thank you.
Thank you, Ljubica. Our next question is, what are the benefits of centralized approach to data governance?
Well, centralized, it is always a dilemma when we are discussing with companies or authorities, organizations, what kind of, it is up to, first of all, companies or authorities to decide what model they're going to use. If you go back to what I said during the presentation, I said that one of the important tips that you should have in mind when you're deciding is what's the best possible solution, the best possible operational model for data governance for your organization. That means that you don't need to follow any companies which are kind of, I don't know, successful in their data governance program, because there are reasons behind it why they're successful. One of the reasons may be that they choose smartly and wisely their operational model. Because if you don't choose, and that means that that can be a centralized one, decentralized one, or semi-centralized or semi-decentralized one. That can be a mixture of both centralized and decentralized. What I can say here is all of them have some weak points and some positive sides. As for the centralized model, one of the main strengths is that data is within and in full control of the staff and in full control of the executive within the company. The level of awareness about all data assets that company has is on the staff. But unfortunately, if you work with a lot of data assets, with a huge volume of data, and especially if you work with so-called sensitive special categories of data, in that case, if it's a huge volume, then you can lose yourself. So it would be very hard for you to control all the risks and all the possible threats. But at the same time, if you decentralize the data governance program And if you store, for example, if the storage of data is somewhere outside your company or your organization, then at the same time you have less control over data. And at the same time, if you are not aware and if you are not 100% sure that the outside factors have the right measures and technological operational security measures in place, you're not sure whether they will react adequately towards potential data risks and threats. Thank you.
Thank you, Ljubica. We will take last two questions. So our second last question is, how can a data governance framework be effectively implemented to manage data privacy and compliance, and what measures should be taken within this framework to protect against injection attacks?
Oh, this is a this is a very this is also a great one, but unfortunately we don't have so much time. Maybe this is the one of the topics that I want to discuss more in some of our further webinars, if they are, or some training sessions, if they are. Very briefly, compliance, being compliant means that not only you should have in mind operational and technical measures when it comes to data privacy, but also for metadata, because metadata is very important from the perspective of companies, but also from the perspective of clients. Why? Because metadata is actually in a way very closely related to personal data, and sometimes metadata helps to identify the individual, helps to identify the specific personal data in place. So that's why it is not easy to answer now very briefly about specific measures and what's most important when it comes to becoming compliant. But let's stick to what I said to now and hope for more space and time to discuss about this in detail.
Definitely, Ljubica, we will be having a next session on this particular subject series in maybe next month or on April. So before we take our last question, we would like to announce to our audience that don't feel bad that we are unable to take all of your questions. You can go to our Reddit page and you can ask to our speaker about whatever questions you have on your mind from this particular webinar, and you have to just mention the hashtag ask the speaker. That's it, you have to mention, and you can paste your question in the Reddit section, and the Reddit link is given in the chat section. So our last question for this webinar is role of GDPR in the data privacy.
Role of GDPR. Oh, data privacy has a huge role of GDPR. How can I say in a few words? I mentioned Middle East countries, why I'm mentioning once again, because those countries nowadays are enacting their first law on personal data protection as a result of their awareness how important data privacy is, especially when it comes to sharing personal data, and especially when it comes to doing business with European Union. So far, GDPR, this is the short, brief answer to the question. GDPR is so far within the whole history of building data privacy standards. GDPR, it seems, the broadest, the widest, and the most detailed document that gives answers and explanations to a vast of questions when it comes to data privacy. And that's why nowadays, after 5 years be in place, be in legal force, GDPR, although it has some weaknesses, in practice it is shown that there are some aspects that should be reassessed. It is still the most valuable legal document which serves for data privacy and personal data protection, which serves as a grounding point and the biggest influencer in building, for instance, the data protection laws in Middle East countries and also in other countries. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ljubica, for this amazing, informative session. Thank you once again, and it was a pleasure to have you with us. We are looking forward more and more session with you, as I have already mentioned that. Before we conclude the webinar, Ljubica, would you like to give a small message to our audience?
I'm very grateful for DC Council and Cyber Talk. There are Cyber Talks for the opportunity to talk about such a challenging topic. As I said, it is not challenging only now, but I strongly believe that it will be even more challenging in the days to come for all of us as individuals and our personal data, but also for a company's organization and other entities. This was great starting opportunity to give some rise to data governance, data management, and data privacy on the other side. I believe that this was valuable for all of you, and I will be very happy if I succeed to inspire you and to follow my personal message, inspire and let yourself to be inspired. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the message to our audience. So before we end the session, I would like to announce our next Cyber Talk session, which is Threat Intelligence and Incident Response, Strengthening Your Security Posture, is scheduled for 14th March by Arun Soni. This session is an expert presentation. To register for this session, please go to our website, which is www.eccu.edu/cyber-talks. The link is given in the chat section. Hope to see you all on 14th March. With this, we are ending the session. Thank you. You all may close your window, or you all may disconnect your line. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ljubica.
Thank you. Bye.